All right, everyone, welcome back. We are here with Jason Goldberg again to continue talking about dating and
I'm
relationships.
still single.
And he's still single. He's still single. And Jason, you are a very conscious man. You do work on yourself. You do
Yeah,
personal growth.
yeah,
You also teach personal growth.
yeah.
What inspired you to get in that line of business?
I think it was one of those things where the way I always describe it is like if you go to a restaurant that you just love, you can't help but tell all your friends they have to try that restaurant. Like, oh my God, it's amazing. The dumplings, like they're incredible. Like you have to have everybody do that. And for me, growing up as somebody who, like I mentioned, was morbidly obese, 330 pounds in my 20s. I was 250 pounds when I was 15. I was on antidepressants from the time I was a teenager into my mid 20s, suicidal ideation into my mid 20s, like depression, anger, all the things you could think about. I had the whole smorgasbord of stuff. And so it wasn't until I really started taking personal responsibility for how I was creating that, and kind of the way that happened is I read about this in my book, but like just having a real wake up call, especially in my physical weight, that things needed to change. And so I dove into personal growth, and I dove into like getting coached and opening up to this whole world that was completely foreign to me. There was nobody in my world growing up that taught me about any of this stuff. And it was just completely out of the ordinary. And for me going through all that transformation and always being somebody who from a very young age, because of me being overweight and because of, getting picked on and stuff in school, I ended up accidentally developing two skill sets, two characteristics that I thought would help me feel enough. And they were humor and empathy. Those were my two big things, right? And so humor, if I could make everybody laugh with me, then they couldn't laugh at me, right? And so humor became a big thing for me from a very young age. And then empathy was actually directly related to the opposite sex because I'm this kid, especially in high school. None of the girls see me as like a viable, boyfriend kind of option. I was always the conduit to my cute friends, right? They would come to me and they'd be like, "Hey, what's the story with Joe?" Right? I'm like, fucking Joe, what about me? And so I was lacking this feeling of connection. And so what I realized is the way that I could get some of that connection need met was to be with these young women in a way that my buddies couldn't. And that's to actually sit there and listen to them and to hear what was going on in their world and console them and do all these things, right? Which, yes, gets you friend zoned very quickly, but it was something that we actually did feel connection. It may not have been a romantic connection, but it was still connection. And so I feel like those things were always kind of the underlying things that I kind of started doing naturally that I felt were really valuable to the world. And that's now a big part of what I do now is I lean on my humor and my empathy in the way that I teach and coach and everything else. So I think it's always just been like in me to be a contributor and to help people. And then couple that with my experience of being coached and getting into personal growth. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
So when you are a coach, do you subconsciously attract people who need fixing? Or do you go on autopilot like, oh, I want to fix this person?
So do you mean in relationship, like in potential partners?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge. I think that's a great point that you bring up. And I do, some of them probably need fixing for lack of a better term. But I think what I do attract is people who maybe want mentorship. So they see the way I show up or they follow my work or they've seen whatever. And I won't say that they're fans, but I will say they're like, oh, wow, this person has a great whatever, like perspective or teaches well or whatever. So we end up getting these conversations and it's very easy for me if they start bringing things to the table that they're being challenged by to kind of move into coach mode. And I think that's probably a bit of a polarity killer with relationships and potential partners. So yeah, I think I do maybe attract some of that.
Yeah, I mean, which completely makes sense, but you're aware of it. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
step
for sure.
one
Yeah.
is the awareness.
Yeah. Step one is awareness. Yeah, with the house is on fire, awareness is awesome, but then you also have to get the hell out of the house.
Yes.
So
That
it's,
would be good.
awareness followed by action is probably a good thing. Yeah, for sure.
Can I just say you look very nice today?
Oh, thank you so much.
Did you pick out your outfit yourself?
I did pick out my outfit myself. Funny enough, I've always been into aesthetics. It wasn't always fashion as an aesthetic, but I was always into aesthetics. And I got into like graphic design as a kid and like, geeky computer stuff. And then when I finally had my own home, I was very into like interior design. And then when I moved here, the one thing I'll say I got from my Bumble relationship that I had, the only one I really had, was she's like an influencer. She's in the whole style thing. So she helped. And now I do have the help of a lovely, amazing stylist by the name of Jean Yang, who's just incredible. She styles Robert Downey Jr. and Brad Pitt and Jason Momoa and all these people. And she is my stylist. Thank you, Jean, if you're watching. But yeah, she's helped a lot. I picked this out myself, but she has been very helpful in all that as well.
Good job. And are you open to being styled?
Yeah.
Or are you, do you have any resistance?
No. Well,
sometimes?
here's the funny thing. So the way that Jean and I connected is Jean had read my book. And then she was a part of some online summit thing. This woman invited me in to speak to her group of like 35 women. And I went on there and spoke to all of them. And then Jean reached out to me. She DM'd me afterwards and she's like, hey, I love your work. Like, it was so great. Like, love your book, all this other stuff. And if you ever want help with style stuff, I'm happy to do it. So my first thought though, because I get a lot of like DMs of like, oh, I want to help you with this. I'm going to coach you on this. I can sell you this service. And I'm like, all right, who's this fucking person? Right? So I go to her Insta and I'm like, oh, okay, she's for real, for real. So I told her, I was like, yes, absolutely. And then we got on the phone the first time, and I've since gone to her office in Beverly Hills to do like actual stuff together. And she was like, are you open to it? I'm like, yo, you're the professional. This is not my expertise. Please manipulate, mold, do whatever you change all this. You want to put me in a wig? Do it. I probably wouldn't
Husband material.
do that. So wait, is the flexibility there the husband material part?
I think that's a good quality, to be open. To be, of course, I mean, women don't want someone like we don't want like a puppet that we could do
Oh yeah, no,
whatever
I definitely would
to.
not. I would not be that.
But
Yeah.
I do find that a lot of men are pretty stubborn. Like sometimes, I mean, my husband doesn't really do it anymore, but in the beginning, even before he would see what I would buy, no. I'm like, you haven't even seen it.
What do you think was his aversion to it? Like, was it the actual clothes, or was it the fact that he didn't pick it out?
He said his mom used to dress them up in these like silly like Easter Sunday clothes, and
okay.
he hated it.
Trauma.
He hated it. Yeah.
Easter Sunday trauma.
So he's like, I'm not your little doll. I'm like, I'm just, and then now we've talked about it. He's more open.
Yeah.
But I feel that men who have been married or they've had a lot of different long-term relationships with women, I think they tend to get, or sometimes people naturally just have a personality like yours where they're just open to that. But I find those men, they know when to push back and they know when not to push back, because sometimes it could just turn into something that it doesn't have to. But of course, communication, mutual respect is always key, right? Like I don't want to disrespect him by like hiding his clothes that I don't like, because I've never done that. No. I might have. Okay, I'll admit I've done it once or twice before, but I won't throw it away. I'll just hide it to see if he even notices.
Oh, it's step by step. It's step by step deception. It's like paint by numbers deception. This is good. You want to ease the deception in. You don't want to go full blown deceit right away. I like this.
No, well, because I just want to see if he doesn't even remember he has it, But if he asks for it, I'm like, oh, okay, man, this is definitely important to him. But I know some women who will just flat out like get rid of it. I think that's disrespectful. And actually hiding it is, it's not the best thing to do.
I mean, you're not a Batman villain, but you're close. It's
I'm just trying to help you.
But that's the thing, right? It's like understand. This was one of the things that I always had with my ex-wife is anytime she got in any kind of like stressful situation, it was always three choices. I can fix it for you. I can help you fix it, or I can just shut up and listen, right? And and I have no tie to any of those things. What do you need in this moment? And sometimes it was like, I need you to fix this for me. Sometimes it's, can you please help me to figure out a solution? And sometimes it's like, I just need someone to listen. And I'm fine with any of those three things. But I think having that kind of level of communication with your partner is really, really important. Yeah,
that's really good. I really, really like that. And it keeps it simple.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Because you're dating, what's your number one complaint about women today?
Ooh, number one complaint about women. Clumsiness. I think that I'm just kidding. No, I'm totally kidding.
Just got my phone.
Clumsiness is actually adorable. I love clumsiness. My number one complaint about women. That's a really good one. I'd say mixed signals is probably my biggest, and it's not even a complaint, it's just a confusion. Like it's just really confusing to me to feel sometimes like I'm somebody where for the most part, I go, if there was a spectrum of, I think every woman's into me, I think no woman's into me, I skew more towards the no woman's into me. And I'm just like, no, she's just friendly. And then people will be like, dude, she's absolutely, no, she's friendly with everybody. That's how she is. Right. And I'm really friendly. I think maybe that's where the projection comes from. I've had it happen before where women think I'm interested in them because I'm interested in them as a human. And like, we have a good connection and they're like, oh, I think he's into me. And I'm like, oh, no. I just think you're great and I love talking to you. So maybe that's why I'm projecting that. But yeah, I think that's the thing is like, I'm trying to be mindful of when I think a woman is sending signals. That's been a practice for me where instead of worrying about them needing to change it, I've just changed my response to women. And now I'm just being much more forward about things that I'm seeing or what I think I'm seeing. And I'll have this conversation and say, hey, I'm feeling this interesting connection with you. I don't know if it's like a soul friendship connection or if there's something more. How are you feeling about like our interaction? And then it's been great. There's yet to be a single woman who I've said that to has been weirded out by it. They're like, wow, like, thank you for just putting it out there. And some will say, I just think you're an awesome person. I want to be your friend. I'm like, awesome. Okay, cool. So that's what it is. And we're good. And then other ones, it's something different. So I think it's a good conversation to have. And then I don't have to worry about my complaints of women sending mixed signals.
What's an example of like a first date that you like to do with someone?
Well, God, it's all changed so much. I used to have a go-to.
Oh yeah, what was the go-to?
My go-to always was Scopa.
Let's go. Oh, okay, Scopa that's a nice restaurant.
Just it's beautiful. It has beautiful ambiance.
Sexy,
it's a sexy vibe. The food's always good. The service is always good. It always felt like a really good, solid place to be. So that's kind of been my go-to. Or before, it would be like if it was going to be something where we were kind of just meeting for the first time kind of thing, then we would go to like Rose Cafe and get coffee or a drink or something like that. I don't really drink, but do something like that. So that's kind of my go-to, but anywhere where we can drop in and have a conversation, that's the biggest thing, right? I want to like really get to know the person right away. And so anything like that is good for me. So dinner typically works for that just because like it's an extended period of time, you get to talk. But what I did transition into was at least a phone call or a FaceTime before I met somebody in person.
Yes.
And that was helpful.
Yes, that saves a lot of time.
Yeah, and a lot of heartache and a lot of stress, and yeah.
When I was single, I would do that as well. I'm like you. I like to be efficient.
Yeah, and it's funny though because love is not efficient.
It's not.
And when
it
you're
can work against you.
Yeah, it can totally work against you. But I think there are little things like that it is important to be a little more efficient just to manage your time and your energy.
Yeah, just to know, like, can you two hold a conversation? What their voice sounds like. Some people are sensitive to that.
Yeah.
And what are some pet peeves of yours?
Just in general with humans.
Yeah.
People who I feel like you can learn so much about people by the way they treat people in the service industry. So whether it's servers at a restaurant or an employee at a store or whatever, and it is probably the biggest turnoff in the world to me if I see somebody treat somebody rude in any way, in any shape or form. I don't tolerate rudeness. I just can't. I can't do it. If you're having a bad day, it's fine, but I can't tolerate rudeness. So rudeness is a huge pet peeve of mine. What else? I don't know if it's a pet peeve, but like I really enjoy a woman that cares about her appearance and will put time in to look good. And if need be, can get ready for brunch in 10 minutes on a Sunday and doesn't need like 2 hours to get ready. Like who's okay with shifting between like a little higher maintenance and a little lower maintenance. Like she has the different speeds. So if a woman is like just super high maintenance, like she can't go to the store unless she's all like Gucci, 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 that's probably going to be an issue for me. I've met women before who do not like comedy.
Okay.
They don't get it. They don't watch it. They don't like it. I cannot be with somebody who does not like comedy. Comedy is a big part of my life. So I can't do that.
But then did they like when you made them laugh? Or
I guess they do. It's just like they don't get into like if I wanted to watch a comedic show or a comedic movie. I remember this girl that I was kind of starting to see, and all she would wanted to watch is like these really gruesome horror movies, which I do not do. It's not my thing at all. And so I tried to do a trade-off where I'm like, yeah, cool, we can watch that, and then like let's watch this other thing. And she's like, no, I don't do comedy. I don't get it. It's not entertaining to me. And I'm just like, it's not entertaining to you. It's like saying water's not wet for you. And it's just like, it's comedy. How do you not like it? So they don't
like laughing.
They don't like laughing. That goes back to the joyful, playful thing. I think it's just, that's what it is. And I think maybe one other pet peeve would be, and I guess maybe kind of goes along with rudeness, but it's entitlement. Just like not being willing to do the work on yourself or out in the world, or thinking the world owes you something, or thinking the world's out to get you. It's just not something I really enjoy being around.
Does it ever freak you out when a woman is too forward?
It hasn't yet. I mean, the only time that it's maybe a little uncomfortable is if I don't feel the same. And then my people pleaser comes in. I'm like, oh man, she was so brave. She was so courageous. And now I have to somehow like let her down. And that's my own shit, but it's never freaked me out. I prefer that. And I've actually said to people before when they're like, what are you looking for? And I said, look at Jay-Z and Beyonce. Jay-Z and Beyonce on their own, perfect, wonderful, masterful, crushing life in all the ways you can crush life separately. And when they come together, this new entity was formed that's also amazing, independent of the amazingness of the two of them. So I'm kind of like Jay-Z looking for my Beyonce in that sense, right? So if it's her authentic self to show up and be forward and say what it is she really wants, that's great. That's a turn on for me. Like because that means in the relationship, she's also going to say, this is what's important to me. This is what I want. And I'm not in the guessing game. As men, we don't want to be in the guessing game of stuff because 99.9% of the time we get it wrong anyways. So I think it's great when a woman's forward. I love that.
Can we talk about masculine, feminine
Yeah.
dynamics? Are you attracted to women when they tend to be a little more feminine or balanced?
This is a funny one for me. So, God, man, it's so weird. I really enjoy the conversation around because I think there's a lot of really goodness to unpack in it. And even in myself, like I noticed that I skew more masculine professionally and more feminine personally. And there's variations and gradations and everything else in there. It's not never black and white. But it's weird that I tend to be attracted to women who have some kind of a masculine part of them, but at the same time, my ideal woman has the masculine in that she's on purpose, like she knows what she stands for, like that side of masculine, but has the softness of the feminine energy. So softness for me would go along with the joyful, playful thing that I'm really into. Like I love the softness of a woman, but I love when she also is able to turn on the passion, the purpose, like the get stuff done. Like she knows what she wants and she's going to do whatever it takes to get it. So I like the dynamic of having both in my partner.
Yes, I do think that for most people today, it's a mix of both.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of men don't like to admit that they have some qualities are considered feminine. It's a mix, just like women are more masculine today than they
Yeah.
were, 100 years ago. It's different. So I think it's finding the areas which you seem pretty clear on of where you tend to like them more masculine, feminine, because sometimes a lot of conversations I have with single friends, they'll say something like, yeah, I want him to be, really masculine, like these guys too feminine. I'm like, well, if you want a really masculine guy, that also comes with him, then you can't be surprised or complain that he's not showing up with you like feminine in this way. That's what your
Right.
girlfriends will do that for you then, so
Right.
so it is a mix. And I think just us staying open too of everyone wants to craft their perfect person, right? Like
Yeah.
they're like this here, but not like this here. It's like a robot.
Yeah.
Which I don't think exists. Like just being clear, but also being open to, because I think if you're too rigid with things like, oh, she has to. I'm like, is that a deal breaker or
Yeah.
is that a preference?
Totally.
Being clear on that.
I think it's important.
Do you think that you're too rigid on anything?
I mean, I'm probably too rigid on height
Okay.
because there's probably been women who have come into my life and I'm just like, yeah, they were
Too
like,
tall?
yeah, like 5'9", 5'10", and I mean I'm 6'1",
Right, you're
but
tall.
I tend to like, I don't know what it is. I tend to like a shorter woman, so I'm probably too rigid on height. It's actually funny. The last woman I dated, seriously, that we were talking about, she was somebody who was in my world like for years, and I never really saw her as a viable kind of relationship candidate for myself. And I did at that point. I was in a phase. I don't know if it's a phase or whatever it was. I was in a phase where I was physically attracted to a certain type of woman, and she did not fit this whatsoever. And for whatever reason, at one point, I don't know if it's actually may have been a conversation with another friend of mine, but it's some conversation where I literally in the conversation was like, I think I'm holding a little too hard to this image of what I think this person's supposed to look like. I think I'm gonna release that. And the day I released that, literally the next day I saw this person and I was like, oh, interesting. So I'm trying not to be rigid at all about like look beyond like all the joyful stuff we talked about. So am I rigid on anything else? I think I am rigid on that, like the youthful energy and the softness thing. Those are two for me that I think I'm pretty rigid on. Is anything else though? There's got to be something.
Yeah, any like deal breakers?
Any deal breakers?
What about like their career?
Yeah, I mean, well, ideally, being 41, I would like to be with somebody who's already pretty established in what they're doing. And they, like I said before, like they feel on purpose and they're doing their thing. They may still be building the thing. It doesn't mean it's like a huge success already, but like they're not in the process of trying to find what they want to be doing with their lives. I don't know that it's a deal breaker, but it feels like it's not ideal. Right. And so that may actually be a deal breaker in a sense. So that would be one thing. As far as like what they do, I don't have any problem with that. The only challenge is that if they are, like I was saying earlier, if they're a 9 to 5er, that can be a challenge just because they may not fully understand the entrepreneur kind of lifestyle, and we may not have the flexibility that I would want us to have to be able to travel and do other things, unless they can like work remotely and stuff. But I like the entrepreneur kind of vibe if possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is friendship important to you?
Huge.
It's huge.
Huge.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like now with my partner as well. So like
Yeah.
back to the person that I dated when I first moved here, the Bumble one, the influencer one.
I think you showed me.
I probably
Is it
did
the
at
same
some point.
one?
Probably, yeah. This is the one that Ajit and Anita did not like.
Okay.
Right?
Your
So-
friends, it's good to take their opinion into consideration.
Absolutely. I didn't take it in quickly enough, but I took it in eventually. But it was a clear sign to me because when we could tell that there was not a match between this person I was dating, and this is not to bash her. She's a fine human being. It just wasn't a good fit. So what happened here was that it was obvious to her and to Ajit and Anita, who are two of the closest people in my life, that there wasn't a compatibility there. And I mentioned that to the girl that I was dating. Her response was, well, who cares? You have your friends over there and I'll be over here and we don't have to cross paths. And that is a deal breaker for me. Like I need to be able to go with my partner and be with any of my friends. And something that I really love is when I know I can leave my partner with people and they're good. They're not going to be like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to talk to people. Before I would do a lot more gathering kind of things and still doing them now to a point, but I need to be able to have my partner kind of hold their own and be able to speak to people and create their own relationship. So friendship is huge for me. And I actually just posted about this the other day. Community has become such a huge thing for me, especially in the last 6 months. It's always been a part of my life, but intentionally creating community in the last 6 months has been huge. And the people that I've ended up creating community with have become such a close part of my life that it's even more important now that I'm able to bring my partner in and really have them be a part of this world that I've created with my community.
Yeah, I agree. That's really important as well. And my husband he's taught me so much about that because there was, I've talked about this quite a bit, but our living situation, how I've considered wanting to move somewhere a little more quiet, still in LA, but just a little tucked away. But his community, a lot of our friends are in the immediate part of LA and he can just bike to see his friends. And I didn't get his attachment to it so much. But in the end, like when you're on your deathbed, what do you think about? It's all your relationships, your community.
Yeah.
And I think having an integrated life with your partner. I mean, people are different. Some people just they want their partner to be separate.
Right.
But I just feel there's so much joy when you can show up consistently across the board and, between your friends, family, your lover, your husband, and your wife. Well, not having a husband, wife, and a lover.
I mean,
hopefully
whatever.
Not, but
No judgment. Whatever you want to do, it's
but-
fine.
Well, I meant.
Not for you.
I find a lot of joy in that. So it sounds like you do appreciate when a woman is independent to a certain degree.
Absolutely.
Can a woman be too independent for you? Or has one been too independent for you?
That's a good question. I guess it would depend on what she considered being independent versus being unwilling to accept help, which I think are two different things. I think people who are independent also know there are limits to what they can do on their own. And they have the open mind and the open heart to accept from other people to receive, although I should talk. Receiving can be hard for me sometimes. I think if independence becomes stubbornness and rigidity and inflexibility, whether it's emotionally or otherwise, then that could be a challenge. But as far as like, if the independence somehow clashes with like our values as a partnership, right? And that may not be apparent in the beginning. It may be something that comes later on. Then I think it's just about being able to have the communication to see like, what is it that level of independence is getting you that you think is missing in the relationship? And is there a way for some of that to come from the relationship so you don't have to be independent to the point that it disconnects us? So independence in the container of a relationship is great. Independence that threatens a relationship, for lack of a better word. And that doesn't mean like you having your own friends, you going off on your own vacations by yourself. That's great. That's independent. That's fine. People should do. I think it's great when people do that as couples, where they go some vacations together and some vacations apart. That's great. Yeah, anything that would like threaten the value system of the relationship without a conversation would be too independent to me.
Okay, and let's talk about hard conversations.
Yeah.
When you have
Had lots of those.
Well, okay, just say, what if a woman wants to go deeper into a relationship or she wants to know the status? What is a good way for her to ask without scaring someone off or feeling like it's too much pressure?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is the challenge, and this is where we have to do better as men. If there's like a 5-year-old kid sitting on the floor playing with a toy, like at a family dinner or something, you would never go up to somebody else and say, "Hey, how do I go talk to that 5-year-old? Like, I want to like play on the carpet too, but like, how do I like, what's the right word? You just go sit on the fucking carpet and you play with the kid." But I think as men, one of the things we have a challenge with, and I think it's a twofold thing, but I think as men, a lot of times we have a challenge accepting the true feelings and true needs being spoken by somebody we're dating, because we think that them asking the question somehow threatens our independence or whatever else. We make it about us. And if somebody asks a question to me like, "What are we?" in my most evolved moment, and maybe I wouldn't always respond this way, but in my most evolved, when I'm slowed down enough and present enough to see, this is just somebody trying to get clarity. And I know what it feels like to feel confused about shit. I don't like to feel confused about stuff. So if I can have empathy for like, oh, she's confused, like she doesn't know, and maybe I don't know either, like let's have the conversation. But I think that like there needs to be enough trust and enough rapport and enough openness and communication in general where you could just come out and say, "Hey, okay, is there a way to say it?" Sure. Maybe not in a way that's accusatory. So if you're not sure what we are, to come out and say, "You know what, I'm sick of you not claiming me as your girlfriend. I'm sick of you not doing blah, blah, blah." I don't think most of us would respond favorably to that, right? But to come out and say like, "I've really enjoyed the time we've spent together. It's been great hanging out and getting to know you and everything else. And I'm just curious, like, do you see this moving forward? Do you see, like, I'm not asking you for, marriage or anything right now, but like, do you see this moving forward? Is this something you want to continue exploring?" And I think that kind of a check-in, if a guy can't handle that, get out anyways, because that's just a red flag of what's going to happen for actual difficult. That's not a difficult conversation in the grand scheme of being with somebody for a long time. That's a minuscule conversation. So if you come with that energy of just like exploring and curiosity, and they can't accept that, then that's on them. But I think that would be the way that I would love to hear it from somebody.
That's fantastic advice. And you know what? I'm going to guess that some of my listeners, you might get some DMs. I'm going to guess that you're going to get some DMs. So in terms of what you're looking for, just so everyone's clear, are you open to long distance relationships?
So no.
Okay.
I mean, it depends. We're in LA, so Venice to West Hollywood is a long distance relationship for a lot of people. But no, my last one was long distance, but it was very long distance. It was overseas, and we were doing back and forth a lot, which is like really tough. And so it was funny because after that, I had kind of met somebody in New York, and I was like, I mean, New York to LA is way better than New York to Australia. So it's like actually, or LA to Australia. So, but no, preferably in the bubble.
Okay.
Somewhere in the bubble of LA. Yeah.
In the bubble. And then do you have an age range, like a general, doesn't have to be super rigid, that you would prefer?
Yeah. I'd say typically, historically, I've been kind of in the 30 to 37-ish range. I would go like 28, 29 if they were like a solid 28, 29. But again, there's 35-year-olds who are not solid 35-year-olds. So it's not always an age thing. But yeah, typically like 30 to 37 is usually my range.
Okay. And my last question is, actually, the viewers wanted me to ask any single guy that came on my show,
Yeah.
Why are you single?
Yeah, I like this question. Why am I single? I think part of it is maybe the thing we talked about earlier is I'm a little too rigid on not investing time unless I think there's a potential. And so that limits the amount of people that I can connect with, which limits the probability that I'll be in a relationship, right? So I feel really confident as a human and as a man that I've done the work, and I'm good in relationship. I'm good in partnership. I don't think there's anything about me that holds me back from being in partnership. But I think that maybe part of it is just my own inflexibility of like, I don't want to just date around, and it makes me super picky to start getting into something.
One of the best pieces of advice I got before I met my husband, she was married, and she said, "Are you open?" She's like, "You have to be open." And sometimes we think we're open, but it's, it's not.
Yeah.
But I always give that piece of advice too, is to try and stay open.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. So if people,
no, I appreciate, and I think that's a really good thing to think about. And I think I'm really open when I meet people in real life. I think my closeness is the apps. So I may need to look at shifting my openness around the apps.
Yeah. I think if you're in a good mood, in a good headspace, just go, just swipe, like just for fun. You like to play.
Yeah.
So just swipe for fun. And I, especially with COVID right now, I just think it's just to see what's out there. Yeah, and I think judging by the pictures, you could as long as they're not like some like sociopath lied or something like that. But you can kind of get a gauge if they choose the right photos
Yeah, true.
and stuff that you can kind of know.
Yeah.
Well, you can definitely tell who's a no.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I need to get some, do you do coaching on profiles?
I should.
You totally should. I would hire you today. I would hire you right this second.
I think men usually actually, I think, need more help with that.
1,000%.
And if you don't ask me, ask like one of your female friends, guys out there, because they will help you. Because sometimes guys also, they post, I think, what other guys might want to see, but not females like to see something different.
What do you want to see? I'm just curious, because I mean, not you in particular, because you're taken, but what would you want to see on a guy's profile?
Okay, in general, clear shot of your face, full body shot. I think if you list, if you could type anything, like I think core values help a lot. A photo with a friend or with some friends, maybe not a big group picture, but one where it's clear which one you are, just to show that you have friends.
That you have a life.
Yeah. No, because I think that's a good sign, like, oh, he has friends. And then I'm pretty intuitive, but I could usually tell by how their friends look too. Sometimes I'm like, oh God, those guys look scummy.
Yeah.
Right. And just like, oh, what kind of people does he have in his life? Doing like maybe an activity that you're interested in. So if you're into outdoors or whatever, like a genuine interest, something like that, I think is good.
What's your take on like having your profession showcased in your photos?
I think that's okay. I think if there's a photo of that, like you speak on stage a lot, I think that's okay. Because
there's a photo of me and I'm like, well, wait, is that? Because somebody had told me at one point, either number one, it's intimidating to have something like that on your profile, because maybe it means like you're not going to be a real person because you're like some wannabe guru, and so you're not going to be like normal. But maybe that's just their shit.
Right. I think that's a good thing to put on, because that is a part of your life.
Right.
Right. And if you are speaking on stage and you're doing that, I don't see anything wrong. I'm big on just like transparency. Like I don't want to be bamboozled. I don't like surprises. You know, if they're uncomfortable in the beginning, I don't, I just want someone to see it. I used to work at a modeling agency in New York, and we would see headshots come through. Yeah. And some of the like headshot, it was like so inaccurate from the person who came through, to the point where I felt like, what's the point of, you're almost wasting time. Yeah. Right. So I think just authentically showing who you are, and just the clarity too. So I know it's superficial, but the full body shot and stuff, most people want to know, and being honest about like height and stuff like that, because sometimes I don't think you are. Usually when the guys are 6 feet or above, they don't lie about their height. Yeah. I feel when they're above, they usually add an inch or two. Yeah. I think that just increases your chances also of it going in a direction, but potentially that you want to.
That's cool. That's super helpful. Okay, I need to do an audit on my profile as soon as we're done here.
Yeah, and good lighting too for the photos. I used to be a photographer, so flattering lighting.
Yes. But that's the other thing though. So the other piece of feedback I got was because most of my photos, I guess not most of my photos, but most of the photos I've chosen for my profile are kind of more professional shots. Okay. And so maybe I need to have more candid.
I would mix in some candid. You don't want it all too perfect.
Yeah.
Right, because you want to look a little human.
Right. So, you want to at least look human. You're not human, but you want to look human.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think overly curated is good either.
Got it.
Right. Because some people, they'll do like professional photo shoots for the reason of, their dating profile. But I think you should mix it in with, that you're a real person too. You take regular photos with your iPhone as well.
Smart.
Yeah.
I love it. So should I just Venmo you for this coaching session?
Okay. So if people want to reach you, where can they reach you? What's your Instagram handle?
Instagram is at the Jason Goldberg. Jason Goldberg was taken. I'm really not that pretentious, but I couldn't get that one.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I had to get something else, right? It's just like, God, how can I be the most pretentious I can? So the Jason Goldberg on Instagram.
Okay. And then do you have a website that you'd like people to check out, or?
Instagram's best. There's all kinds of stuff on there, links to my podcast, and you can check out all that stuff as well. And it's all there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and being so vulnerable. And you're so, like some of the stuff you were saying, you're so articulate.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it's good. He's a catch.
You're a rock star.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Cece.